Oh, well, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Come sit down. Let's read the next chapter of our book, The Founding Fathers, Chapter 12. Our favorite patriot, Thomas Paine. I wrote a paper about him in college. Why? You ask, because I had to write 2 term papers, one for American Lit and one for American history, right? My history class, whatever. And I didn't want to write 2 papers, so I picked Thomas Paine because I could write 1 paper and hand them in to both teachers, which is what I did. And it's the only Final Jeopardy question I've ever gotten right because of that. So, Thomas Paine, I have a few books on my shelf. Let me know if you also do. Are you familiar? Do you think you know what this chapter is going to say? I don't know. I've not read it yet. So my fingers are crossed. He's one of the good guys. And now watch. See how they kind of look like their legs are on the strings of the balloon now from the background. Hang on. Watch this. You see, they'll pop up. They'll look like the strings. Isn't that fun? Okay. So, Thomas Paine. He was known as the author. He was born on January 29th of 1737, and he died June 8th of 1809. Thomas Paine was a troublemaker who died penniless and friendless. Oh, sounds a lot like us, doesn't it? Maybe he was one of the only good guys. Okay. He hated kings, rich people, and pretty much all authority figures. So far, so good. I'm really relating. And some people considered him to be one of the most important founding fathers, even though he didn't sign the Declaration of Independence or help frame the Constitution. He was born and bred in England, where he became a pirate and a tax collector. After getting into trouble with the British government, Paine moved to America with help from Ben Franklin just before the Revolution. Revolution? He must have said to himself, "Sign me up." The first thing he did in America was to write a book. And not just any book. This book explained in very simple language what colonial citizens should want to go to war against Britain. I think he had a vendetta. Do you have a vendetta? He's like, oh yeah, we should totally do this. I've got a bone to pick. It was a bestseller, and practically every grown-up in America read it. It's titled Common Sense. Another thing he wrote, The American Crisis, explained why Americans should keep fighting the war against Britain. General George Washington even used this book to inspire his tired troops at Valley Forge. There's a common saying that, quote, without the pen of Paine, the sword of Washington would have been wielded in vain. Wielded in vain? After the Revolution, Paine did things that made his fellow founding fathers angry. He joined the French Revolution. He wrote books against religion and slavery. He called for taxes on rich people and welfare programs to poor people. There was never a more tireless champion of liberty and justice for all than Mr. Paine. Some of his famous quotes: "These are the times that try men's soul. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands it now deserves the thanks of man and woman." And then he says, in other words, and then he says, the cause of America is in great measure the cause of all mankind. And another one, my country is the world, and my religion is to do good. And his last, most famous quote, all national institutions of churches, whether Jewish, Christian, or Turkish, appear to me no other than human inventions set up to terrify and enslave mankind and monopolize power and profit. So far, so good. Thomas Paine hasn't hit any of the douchebag buttons. Other than maybe he had a grudge, but I mean, can I hold it against him? Not really. Not yet. How tall was he? 5 feet 10 inches. His weight? Athletic. His political leaning? 100% revolutionary. Jobs held? A privateer, a pirate hired by the government. A servant, a school teacher, a tax collector, a tobacco shop owner, a bridge designer, a political philosopher, and a writer. Years served in the Continental Army? 1. I'd love to know what bridges he designed. It was an odd thing to just find in there. I designed a bridge. What? On top of all these other things, you came up with the idea for a bridge? He was self-educated. His stance on France, he loved the revolutionaries, but hated the aristocrats. His wealth, he was poor. No wonder. That explains a lot. His political party, none. Main residence, border town, New Jersey. Other residences, Paris, London, and many other places. He was a landowner of 300 acres, a gift from the U.S. government. I want that in my contract. His position on slavery, against it, and he therefore didn't own any slaves. His religious views, he was a deist and against organized religion. His achievements, best-selling author of his time, wrote stuff that influenced history like Common Sense, The American Crisis, The Rights of Man, just to name a few. Took part in American and French revolutions. Designed what was then the longest iron bridge. There it is. His opinion on the Boston Tea Party? He don't know. He was in England. Anyway, go Tom. Go Tom. Go Tom. Like the only one so far. So what are we on? 1 out of 12 or 1 out of 13? 12 douchebags. 1 maybe. Maybe you know some things about Thomas Paine, that I don't. You could say, actually, he was a douchebag. And here's the evidence. And I'll go, fair enough. But I think most of us would say, maybe he was one of the angels in the demon era of its time. Would you say? I don't know. My imaginary friends, what are your thoughts about Thomas Paine? Little parade of balloon animals. Oh, sweet dreams, my friends. Sweet dreams.